Okay, today I'm going to make a ribeye and show you how I do it. So here's my ribeye, beautiful piece of meat. This one is actually defrosted and roomed up, but I've also done this with defrosted at refrigerator temperature and barely defrosted. So sometimes I'll take a frozen steak out, put it in a bowl of water for maybe 15 or 30 minutes until it's soft enough to get the probe in, because we're going to use the probe, and then I'll put it right in and it comes out fantastic that way too. So don't need to fully defrost it. If you're stuck and you want to cook a steak and it's in the freezer, you could still do it pretty well. Okay, so I'm going to open this up. And the first thing I'm going to do is dry it off. So I'll just put it, it's a paper towel there. Supposedly that gives you a better sear or something. It was in the food lab book, so I just do it. But that's not a biggie, not necessary. Okay, then what I do is I've got my salt. So I'm using the Redmond's, it's got a K on it, which means I put the kosher salt in here. I like that because it's big grains, large grains. So I'll take this, and you can see here kind of how much salt I'm putting on there. This is a pretty thick steak, so I can put a lot of salt on and just get both sides. Okay, steak's ready to go. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the probe and I'm going to stick it sideways right in there. I want to get it right in the middle. So, right there. You don't want the tip to come up or down so that it's too close to the surface. The other thing is I tend to look for the meaty part. I want the tip of the probe to end up kind of right in the middle of the meat. I've seen somewhere where it says you don't want the probe to be in fat, so I put it in the meat. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to shoot for a spot right around there. I'm going to put it in the side here where it's kind of right in the middle, and then I'm going to push it in so that I know the tip is in there. So you can see the tip is right there, and you can see that I've put it in the side and I've tried to keep it pretty straight. Next thing I'm going to do is I got my basket here from the Dreo, and I'm using this particular tray. So I'll lay this in there, and I'll hook up my probe here to the basket. The technique I do is I tend to put it, see the cord here? I tend to run it underneath this bar and through this hole, and then into that, and I set that on top. That's kind of the way I do it. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is put it in the Dreo. So first thing I want to do is make sure I've got water in here. So because when I cook it, it's going to do the sous vide function. So I'm just going to top that off there, get it up to the fill line. And then put my cap back on there. Okay, now I'm going to put this in to the Dreo. Now, what I'm going to do here on the controls is I'm going to use chef mode. I like the chef mode. So it defaults to chef mode, so I'm going to hit the play button to select that. The next thing that comes up is beef. So I'm going to leave it on beef, and I'm going to hit the play button. And now it's going to ask me what type of beef I want. Okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move the arrow down until I get to steak ribeye. Then I'm going to select that. It's got a bunch of things here that it's reminding me that I could flip through and get these instructions. It tells me to use the grilling rack and make sure the probe is in the middle, and tells me I could rub it with butter if I want to and all that stuff. So anyway, that's just sort of for your reference. I just move right through that by hitting this play button. Now it asks me how I want it to be done. Lately I've been doing the medium. It still seems to be nice and red in the middle. And then I hit the play button. Now from here, it has two options. The bottom one, which is sous vide flavor, and the top one, which is this, they call it classic flavor. So I hit the up arrow button and I pick the classic flavor. Then I hit the play button right here. And that's it. It's reminding me to have water in the tank, and then it's off and running. And that's pretty much it. What I do is make sure that I'm standing by so that when the steak is done, I'm here. I don't want it to finish and then be sitting there inside that warm chamber. I want to be here, take it out, get it onto a cutting board right away. Then what I want to do is I want to make sure I leave it on that board and don't touch it for 10 minutes. That's really important. I'm resting the meat, and it takes all the liquids and it makes sure that it's fully incorporated back into the cells of the meat. It really gets nice and fluffy and tender, and it's really a great way to make sure that that steak is good and tender. That's it. That's your perfect recipe. You start off with a really good ribeye and your Dreo. Life is good. You're good to go. All right, there you go. Have fun. Now, when it's about 5 minutes left, to 3 to 5 minutes. Right now it says 3 minutes. What I like to do is I open it and I grab the steak and I flip it over. And that's so, because even though it's cooking up both sides, it's cooking a little bit more on the top than the bottom. So when I give it that flip, I make sure I get a nice sear on both the top and the bottom. Okay, the beeper just went off. I'm gonna open the drawer. There's our beautiful steak, look at that. We're gonna pull this right out, real quick, get it right on that board, and get that probe out of there. Okay, and I'm gonna leave that sit for at least 10 minutes. In here, what you'll see is I got a lot of really nice fat that's accumulated, that's melted off of that steak. Well, we're not gonna let that go to waste. That's really good grass-fed fat. So we wanna hold on to that. What we're gonna do is we're gonna end up pouring it over the top of this steak when we eat it, because we want to capture the fat. So after this is done resting, we're gonna come back and we're gonna carve it up. I'm gonna show you that. Boy, one thing that's really tempting when you have this sitting here is these nice pieces of crispy fat that are on the outside. Wow. Oh, really good. So, okay, we'll be back in 10 minutes. We're gonna carve this up. Okay, it's been 10 minutes. Let's carve up this beautiful ribeye. So generally what I tend to do is, first thing I'll do is cut the tail off. The tail is mostly beautiful fat. This is a grass-fed and finished ribeye, and that fat is just beautiful. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna set that aside and we're gonna slice that up and serve that with the meat. It is so, so good, especially when it's got that nice toasty finish on it. So I'll just set that right there. And then, you know, the ribeye tends to have a line of, like a seam coming around it this way. So you get the eye of the ribeye here, at least that's what I call it. And then I can cut right along that seam, which has fat in it. And what I'm doing is I'm separating the eye of the ribeye here. This tends to be what I cut for my wife because she likes it nice and clean. And then you've got this, which is like an outer strip. It's probably got a technical name. I don't know what it is. But this particular piece is really, it's got a lot of nice fat marbling in it. And it tends to have the grain running this way along it, which means that we can cut it sideways like this and get a really tender steak. So let's move that over here and let's do the eye first. Now what I do with the eye is, it's especially for my wife. I'll trim off some of this stuff on the outside, these fat bits. And believe me, they're not going to waste because I'm going to eat them myself. They are delicious. I would eat them now, but it makes it harder to talk. Okay, then over here, there's kind of a little piece of fatty, grizzly fat that kind of cuts in to the ribeye. You could kind of see it there. See that little kind of bit? I don't know what that is. It's always there. I tend to cut in and just remove that. I'll eat that myself too because I love the fat, and the grizzle has collagen in it, which I don't mind eating. Okay, just a couple of more pieces of kind of a membrane like around the outside here that I'll cut off of my wife's piece, and that'll go into my pile. I'm like a beast, like a machine, and I love it. So I put that in my little private stash. Okay, now, what I tend to do with this, see, now it's got the cut coming through. I just tend to kind of cut right this way. Cut that right off. It just gives me two different pieces. Makes it easier to cut. Now, so I got this piece of the eye. First thing I do is I take my fork and knife and I pull it different directions so I can detect the grain, right? Now here, I can see that the grain is going this way, right? And you always want to cut against the grain, right? So I'm really spending some good time to make sure that I'm getting that right. And I'm going to be going against the grain. And when you cut against the grain, you let your knife do the work. Look at that. Beautiful. Beautiful, beautiful. And this meat being well rested, you'll notice that the juices are not running out of the meat and into my cutting board. And sometimes this last little piece, again, it may have a little bit of membrane on the outside, whatever. I'm going to put that in my beast pile over there, the machine pile. And then, as you see here, we've got a beautiful set of just fantastic meat. So I'll take my plate here, and let's just plate that up. Okay. Now I've got the other half of that eye, so pretty easy to see which way the grain is going on that. So I'm just going to cut across it again, and I've got a bunch of really beautiful pieces there that I'll add to that. Now that's typically the Queen's plate. That's typically what I give to my wife right there. Now, in addition to this, which I'm going to eat all of that, and I'm going to eat a lot of this fat here. Now we've got this kind of outer piece. I love this. It's really tender. It's a little bit, you know, less organized because you got kind of fat running through it in here. But I just cut right through that. Now you can see pretty clearly, see how the grain is going along it, right? And you can see how easy it separates. You can see the evidence of the grain. And so this, when you cut it, it's got a different kind of look to it. It's very juicy. I love it. It's fantastic. It's got a lot of really nice fat in it. So this typically makes up the King's plate. And for now, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take this and put it right next to that, so you can see all that. And then we've got the fat tail. Look at that. Beautiful. Now there is a little bit of meat in that, but there's always kind of like a little edge there. And that's a really nice juicy section. And got a little piece in here as well. So what I can do is I can cut those out. Just cut this one in half here against the grain. I'll put that on the King's pile. That's a really nice pile there. And okay, now we got the fat tail. And what I'm gonna do with the fat tail is just cut it up into some really nice slices like this. This is a very soft fat. There's no grizzle in here. It's beautiful, so tasty. And boy, once you develop a taste for this and a habit of eating that fat, that is absolutely gorgeous. It really is satisfying and really sticks to your ribs. This I'm gonna eat myself. And so there you have it. There's your ribeye all done up. We've got the queen's section of the plate right down here at the bottom. As you can see, this is pretty uniform, clean pieces, are pretty lean. I mean, of course, there's going to be fat in there, but it's relatively more lean. And then we've got this section over here, which is the king's section, which is made out of that kind of messier, but I think amazingly delicious section of the ribeye. You can see the meat it's really kind of falls apart there. You know, I like that part of it. And then we have our beautiful fat snack here, which, oh yeah, that's super tasty. And there you have it. That's how I do it. That's a ribeye, and that is the world's best food, boy. That's gonna set you up, man. You put your ribeye, your Dreo, your salt, and you do that process, and life can't get any better than that. All right, there you go. Thanks for watching.